Hey, this is Joymahidul here. At first, if you like the video, please share it with your friends and your respected comments below here. For video clips, all credits go to the movie owners. We make which are truly hidden gems to entertain people. This video is all about explaining the movie from our own point of view. For the explanation, we have used most of the video clips for the movie for the better understanding. Stay with us till the end. Enjoy the video. Please subscribe and follow. Turn on notification button.
Today, I'm going to explain a sci-fi film called Hollow Man. Spoilers ahead. Keep an eye out and fare thee well. Inside a military-endorsed research lab, a rodent accidentally runs into an enclosure in search of food and water. However, rather than observing food, it becomes prey to a concealed hunter. The imperceptible monster possibly becomes discernible when the rodent's blood corrupts its sharp teeth. Somewhere else, Dr. Sebastian Kane stays at work longer than required in his loft to foster an equation to switch a system that turns a subject imperceptible. He stops for some time to appreciate his charming neighbor in the following structure as she puts on something else. Sebastian's expectation of seeing her disrobe goes to dissatisfaction when the lady closes the blinds on her window. As he walks about the loft, he out of nowhere concocts a leap forward, so he right away tests it on the PC. Not long, he calls his partner and ex Linda McKay to report his prosperity. During a video call, he sees a man on Linda's bed and asks what its identity is. However, Linda dismisses the camera from the bed. It is no longer to take note of that her affection life's Sebastian's business. Subsequent to showing Linda the leading-edge equation, he requests that she call their associate Matt Kensington to set up the gorilla Isabel so they could lead a live test. Subsequent to dropping the call, Linda awakens Matt and lets him know that they need to go to the lab quickly in light of the fact that Sebastian at last broke the inversion equation. Linda lets him know that they ought to go in discreet vehicles to stay quiet about their relationship from Sebastian. Matt clues that they will need to tell Sebastian sooner or later, so Linda guarantees him that she will do it sometime in the not-so-distant future. Upon their appearance, Matt goes directly to Isabel's enclosure to steady the undetectable gorilla. Be that as it may, before he could infuse her with the arrangement, the creature fixes him and runs of the enclosure. As Matt pursues the primate, he runs into Sebastian in the foyer. In the wake of snatching a sedative weapon, Sebastian starts a $10 bet, saying he'll be the one to get Isabel first. With the gorilla cornered, Matt shoots her with the sedative, yet he misses. Sebastian promptly circles back to a single shot and hits the primate, thumping her oblivious. Dr. Sarah Kennedy, the lab veterinarian, unexpectedly bursts in and goes up against Sebastian about infusing the new equation into Isabel without testing it. Sebastian contends that skirting the tests will save them time. Linda interferes with their contention to let Sebastian know that the lab is prepared. In the wake of checking Isabel's vitals, Sarah splashes the gorilla's arms with a color and taps it to get ready for the infusion. As Matt gets ready to infuse Isabel with the serum, Sebastian gets the needle from Matt, saying the honor ought to go to him. Not long after infusion, the serum goes through the gorilla's veins and advances toward the heart. The exploration group watches in astonishment as Isabel's imperative organs become apparent. Notwithstanding, the gorilla begins flailing uncontrollably in torment as her circulatory strain and pulse rise. Before long, the gorilla begins going through heart failure and at last flatlines, so Linda hits her with the defibrillator a few times. Sebastian requests that Matt direct an intracardiac infusion, later getting no reaction. Yet before Matt could infuse the gorilla, her heart begins pulsating once more. As her condition settles, Isabel's body gradually becomes noticeable. The exploration group commends their prosperity by eating in an upscale eatery. During a second alone with Linda, Sebastian thinks back about their bombed relationship and hints that he needs to reunite with her. Nonetheless, his expectations of reviving their relationship are before long run when he sees her pulling back when he attempts to kiss her. Days after the fact, Sebastian meets with an oversight council at the Pentagon to report his discoveries. In any case, Linda and Matt are shocked to hear Sebastian letting them know that he was ineffective at switching the methodology. Sebastian lets the advisory group know that the exploration group is near tracking down an answer. In any case, they actually need additional time. Dr. Howard Kramer, Sebastian's previous instructor, acclaims his resourcefulness and assurance. However, he cautions Sebastian that the public authority would be able effectively supplant him in the event that he doesn't show them any outcomes soon. Sebastian advises Linda and Matt that he wasn't prepared to tell the military about their achievement, expecting that the public authority will assume control over the undertaking once they report their discoveries. Sebastian proposes leading a test on people without telling the public authority. Matt advises him that there are rules and systems, yet that's what Sebastian contends observing the guidelines will waste their time. Sebastian guarantees them that they will have a superior possibility winning the Nobel Prize by assuming control over the task. At the point when they return to the lab, Sebastian tells the remainder of the group that they got the freedom to proceed with human testing since he chipped in. Detecting the group's worries, Sebastian advises them that they had effectively brought back 7 chimps in the beyond about a month. He focuses on that human testing would be the following intelligent advance to move the task along. When they proceed with the system, Sebastian will remain undetectable for 3 days prior to playing out the inversion. Upon the arrival of the strategy, Matt lets Sebastian know that he can in any case retreat. Yet Sebastian is not set in stone to be the principal human guinea pig for his investigation. On the surgical table, Sebastian takes the serum from Linda, saying he'll infuse himself so Linda will not be accused in the case of anything turns out badly. Not long after shooting the serum into his vein, Sebastian begins feeling a shiver in his arm. He unexpectedly begins flailing wildly from the aggravation as his skin begins to disappear. Seeing his temperamental pulse, Carter Abbey, the crisis clinical expert, quickly brings the defibrillator close to the surgical table. Yet, before they could stun him, his pulse starts to settle even as he squirms from the aggravation. Before long, Sebastian passes out while his body gradually turns undetectable. Following 17 hours, Sebastian at long last awakens. Overpowered by the splendor, Sebastian advises Linda to switch out the lights, taking note of that he can't close his eyelids. Linda calls attention to that Sebastian can in any case see when he closes them since they are presently straightforward. Sebastian quickly strolls to a mirror to check whether he has truly turned undetectable. He then strolls with Matt and Linda to the lab to let the remainder of the group wonder about his intangibility. Later on, Linda advises Sebastian that one regarding the colleagues will be remaining with him in the event that he really wants anything. The remainder of the group will be on alert so that they could run back to the lab in 30 minutes or less. Prior to leaving, Linda lets Sarah know that Carter will stop by at 6 a.m. while she will be back by 8. While Sarah rests, Sebastian approaches her and strokes her hair, attempting to see whether she's conscious. Not long, Sebastian begins unfastening her shirt and contacts her improperly. At the point when Sarah awakens, she sees her unfastened shirt, so she inquires as to whether he's in the room with her. Whenever she takes a gander at the screen, Sebastian isn't in his bed, however he gets back and rests when Sarah pivots. The next morning, Sarah educates Linda and Matt concerning her doubt that Sebastian had done something to her while she was snoozing. In any case, Sarah tells them not to defy Sebastian in light of the fact that she is as yet not certain, assuming anything occurred. At the point when Matt gets some information about his non-appearance from his room, Sebastian makes sense of that he went out to get espresso. 3 days after the methodology, the group plans Sebastian for the inversion. After Matt infuses him with the serum, Sebastian begins breathing vigorously. It is off base to let them know that something. Before long, he flails uncontrollably the table and breaks liberated from the lashes, so Matt and Carter hold him down. Nonetheless, Sebastian actually figures out how to get up from the table subsequent to tossing Carter across the room, furthermore, kicking Matt in the face. His body becomes noticeable briefly, however he drops to the ground and becomes oblivious. When they take him back to the table, Linda finds that Sebastian no longer has a heartbeat, so Matt performs CPR on him. His heartbeat ultimately returns, and his body gradually becomes imperceptible once more. The point when Sebastian gets up hours after the fact, Linda lets him know that he nearly passed on. Sebastian advises Linda that he wants to make a few changes, assuming he will stay imperceptible, so they make a plastic veil to make him noticeable as he strolls around the lab. Over the course of the following couple of days, Matt frantically attempts to sort out some way to switch the system without eliminating Sebastian. Following 10 days of intangibility, Sebastian becomes baffled from going through a few tests and being bound to the lab. One evening, he chooses to go out when Carter is the only one at the lab looking after him. Neglecting to stop Sebastian, Carter quickly calls the other colleagues to caution them about Sebastian's flight. While driving out and about, he chooses to mess around with 2 children in a vehicle by showing them his void eye attachments. Linda requests that Matt go to the lab while she looks at Sebastian's Sebastian returns home. He sees his neighbor at the following structure putting on something else. He reluctantly chooses to exploit his imperceptibility and go to the following structure to see the lady very close. Sebastian rings the chime a few times until the lady opens the entryway and emerges from the room. At the point when she gets back inside, Sebastian notices the lady brushing her hair. He then, at that point, moves the mirror a few times, making the lady check out the room in a frenzy. As she gets some distance from him, Sebastian begins compelling himself on her. Linda before long shows up at Sebastian's loft and tracks down his veil and garments on the bed. Subsequent to having his direction with his neighbor, Sebastian glances through the window and sees Linda in his loft. He holds on until Linda leaves prior to getting back to his home. Back at the lab, Frank Chase, the lab expert, gives out sedative weapons to the remainder of the examination group as they get ready to search for Sebastian outside. Sebastian before long shows up and lets them know that he just returned home to get a couple of things. Linda lets him know that she'll go directly to the board of trustees, assuming he has a go at leaving the lab once more. Linda educates Matt regarding her anxiety that the imperceptibility has now begun to influence Sebastian's brain in light of the fact that he has been imperceptible far longer than the creatures. While Carter plays out a few actual tests on him, Sebastian admits that he screwed with a lady while he was outside, and he preferred it. A couple of days after the fact, Matt calls Linda to tell her that he had a forward leap. Nonetheless, the interaction separates during a recreation at the lab. Sebastian communicates his dissatisfaction to Linda that he can't exploit his intangibility, adding that he has turned into a detainee at the lab. Whenever Linda lets him know that he's not a detainee, Sebastian brings up that Linda can unreservedly head outside and accompany her beau while he's trapped in the lab. Soon thereafter, Sebastian snatches a piece of electronic gear at the lab and introduces it in the camera inside his space to run a video circle of himself resting on the bed. He chooses to visit Linda's loft and figures out that she's been dating Matt. As Matt and Linda have intercourse, Sebastian breaks the window close to the bed, hindering them. Linda calls the lab to see whether Sebastian has gotten away, however Frank tells her that he's sleeping. Sebastian returns to the lab, infuriated with desire. While walking about the office, he gets irritated by the yapping of the undetectable canine, so he gets it and hammers it on the dividers of the enclosure until it passes on. Whenever Sarah goes up against Sebastian about the dead creature, he professes to be sleeping when it passed on. Subsequent to going through the video security film, they infer that Sebastian never left the room. While Linda is working at home, she's unexpectedly upset when she hears clamors all around the room, so she rushes to the lab to check whether Sebastian's there. Linda sees him lying in bed on the video screen, yet she doesn't track down him in his room. She understands that he's been running a video circle of himself in bed, so she calls everybody in the group to return to the lab. In the meantime, Sebastian strolls around the parking garage, noticing the exploration group as they show up. Matt and Linda visit Dr. Kramer to report Sebastian, however unbeknownst to them, Sebastian followed them there. After they leave, Sebastian assaults Dr. Kramer by the pool and suffocates him. Dr. Kramer shouts to his better half for help, yet, when she gets to the pool, Dr. Kramer is now dead. Whenever Linda shows up at the lab the following day, she attempts to call Dr. Kramer. In any case, she figures out that he suffocated in the pool the earlier evening. She has a go at calling another individual from the Oversight Advisory Group, however the telephone lines are abruptly detached. Matt and Linda attempt to leave the lab, however the security framework won't allow them to utilize the lift. Before long, the exploration group discovers that their entrance codes inside the lab have been denied. As the group begins looking for Sebastian, Janice Walton, the lab tech, falls behind while she snatches a warm goggle. Sebastian unexpectedly shows up at the entryway and chokes her with an IV line. She shouts, however her voice is overwhelmed by the commotion of the shrieking creatures in their enclosures. Neglecting to observe Kramer, Linda utilizes the radio to let Sebastian know that the Board of Trustees as of now knows what he did. In any case, Sebastian uncovers that he killed Kramer the earlier evening before he could inform anybody regarding him. Before long, the group understands that Janice is missing. Utilizing their warm goggles, they find her dormant body inside a storage. Linda requests that Frank re-establish their entrance codes so they can actuate movement locators. At the point when they see somebody traveling through the passages, Matt and Carter arm themselves with sedative firearms to observe Sebastian as Linda guides them. Carter sees heat marks behind the lines, however Matt finds that the hotness is coming from the vent. While Matt isn't looking, Sebastian gets Carter while stowing away on a roof pipe. Matt shoots him, yet he misses and hits a line, all things being equal. As Matt keeps on shooting, Sebastian flings Carter toward the divider. Carter hits the edge of a metal box by the lines, cutting a significant supply route and causing enormous blood misfortune. Sebastian encircles himself with heat exuding from the lines, delivering Matt's warm goggles futile. In the wake of running out of sedatives, Matt gets a fire quencher to utilize it against Sebastian. With the smoke from the fire dowser, Matt can see Sebastian, however he actually battles to hit him. Sebastian thumps Matt to the ground with a punch and a kick, yet Linda shows up to take him to somewhere safe. Sarah discovers that Carter has lost a ton of blood, so she snatches a few sacks of blood from the stroll and ice chest. Before she could return to Carter, Sebastian secures her, so she sprinkles the blood all around the floor to see Sebastian's strides. She figures out how to splash Sebastian with blood, yet Sebastian handles her and fires her with the sedative weapon. Not happy with thumping Sarah oblivious, Sebastian breaks her neck, killing her right away. Carter before long kicks the bucket from serious blood misfortune while Frank trusts that Sarah will get back. Plane abandons Carter's dead body and goes with Matt and Linda to track down Sarah. At the point when they find her body in the stroll and ice chest, Sebastian arises and cuts Frank with a crowbar. Thereafter, Sebastian cuts Matt with a metal bar in the lower chest and locks him and Linda inside the ice chest. Sebastian returns to his space to wear his veil and plan to leave the lab. Linda patches up Matt's injury with pipe tape and escapes from the cooler utilizing a polarized metal cabinet handle. She then hauls Matt out of the cooler and gets a fire going to warm him up. In the interim, Sebastian gets together a few synthetics to make a touchy to explode the lab and conceal his wrongdoings. He places the synthetic substances in a rotator and sets the clock for 5 minutes prior to making a beeline for the lift. After arriving at the lift, Linda stops him and sets him burning with a flamethrower. She slides down to the floor to prevent the lift entryways from shutting and keeps shooting blazes at Sebastian. In the wake of leaving the lift, Sebastian gradually strips away his seared garments, making him imperceptible once more. Linda utilizes the leftover fuel on the flamethrower to enact the sprinklers. Sebastian figures out how to surprise her and repress her, however Matt acts the hero, thumping Sebastian out with a crowbar. Sebastian attempts to hit Matt with the crowbar, however Matt fights him off, making him hit a breaker box. As Sebastian gets shocked, his body turns out to be to some extent noticeable. Matt and Linda find the shoddy dangerous that Sebastian made, so they race to the lift with expectations of ascending the stepping stool that leads outside. As they move up, the improvised bomb detonates, sending the lift upwards, scratching Linda's shoulder. The lift is then pulled down, yet it stops not long before it hits Matt. As they begin ascending the stepping stool once more, Sebastian pulls Linda back down. Linda furthermore, Sebastian fall on the lift, which is hanging simply by a thick wire. As Linda battles to break free, and Sebastian sneaks one final kiss, telling her that it's just because. While they kiss, Linda snatches the wire holding up the lift and uses her foot to detach it. Linda clings to the wire as she watches Sebastian tumble to his demise down the deep opening. Linda also, Matt before long rise out of the consuming structure as firemen scramble to extinguish the flares. Before Sebastian turned imperceptible, the examination group figured out how to endure his pomposity and outrageous seriousness. A greater amount of his terrible characteristics appeared to turn up not long after turning into the guinea pig of his own trial. He promptly abused Sarah the main night he became imperceptible. Whenever the inversion method fizzled, he became disturbed from being restricted in the lab, so he chose to break convention and leave. With nobody to stop him outside, he exploits his imperceptibility and attacks his neighbor. Sebastian's fixation on Linda likewise outgrew control all through the trial. Despite the fact that he's not in a relationship with Linda, he killed a guiltless canine in a desirous fury when he found her relationship with Matt. Out of the entirety of his awful attributes, the deadliest up to this point has been his aspiration. With an end goal to safeguard his vocation, he killed his coach Dr. Kramer, and he made an intricate arrangement to explode the lab, with every one of his partners caught inside, to obliterate all the proof of his violations. If not for Linda and Matt, he could have succeeded. The move end here. A debt of gratitude is in order for watching. Stay with us. Be cheerful. See you next recap.